Many WNBA fans are calling out the referee problem, and they are demanding answers and they are demanding changes.
The referees literally turned their back.
Caitlin Clark appears to be hunted every game. She deals with physicality that no other player in the league is dealing with.
Footage has emerged proving WNBA referees definitely have an agenda against Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever.
I feel like I'm getting hammered.
A dishonest WNBA referee was just banned after his terrible call during Caitlin Clark's injury was made public.
It's shocking.
Caitlin Clark will be sidelined for at least 2 weeks
with a quad injury.
Footage has emerged how Caitlin Clark got hurt.
Fouls her for the 4th time. It's cheap.
I mean, really, Guy, is this girl the target of a personal grudge? Who exactly is paying your salary? Because whatever you're doing outside isn't officiating. It's the most pitiful display of ineptitude and envy we've witnessed in this league.
The WNBA not stepping in to protect their cash cow, their only draw, their only star, and this is the end result.
Let's be clear about one thing. The WNBA has been clinging tightly to Caitlin Clark as its golden ticket. The league has grown more thrilling, well-known, and, dare I say it, more relevant because of her.
Caitlin Clark is the driving force behind the interest in the Fever and the interest in the WNBA.
Rookie Caitlin Clark was subject to several intentional fouls.
Products are flying off the shelves. Attendance at games is shattering records, and fans are turning out. Thanks to Clark, the WNBA's treatment of her, however, is the real deal. It appears that the referees have a personal grudge against her for an inexplicable reason.
After every single game, WNBA players, fans, coaches are all complaining about the referees, and they have shown that they're not going to change it.
She receives terrible calls, ignored foul calls, and a degree of contempt that no other player in the league experiences every time she takes the floor. Why is it because they find her too good? Is it envy?
Physicality dominated the headlines, particularly when Indiana Fever star rookie Caitlin Clark was subject to several intentional fouls.
Perhaps the reason they dislike her is that she performs a function that the WNBA cannot function without, expanding the league regardless of cause. This season has demonstrated how unmanageable the officiating has gotten, and the league needs to take action soon.
There's a committee that is saying what style of basketball they want to allow, what is okay, what is acceptable, what is not.
Consider the game between the Fever and the Liberty. The bout between two heavyweights was supposed to be thrilling, but instead it became a nightmare for the referee. Caitlin Clark was repeatedly fouled, but nothing happened.
Also gather from this is that the league is basically saying it can be this physical, let it be this physical. The problem that a lot of us have with the referees is it's either very physical and they're calling everything or they're missing calls.
The disparity in free throws was so egregious that it was hilarious. 31 less attempts at free throws for Fever 31 is more than just an oversight. If you're playing against a team that is aggressively attacking rim, that isn't doable.
And how the referees are calling certain games.
Let's disregard it. Will we? The game's last play was the icing on the cake. Clark was physically seized with 1 second remaining in what could have been a game-winning attempt, but the umpires abruptly chose to ignore it.
They call fouls on screeners, and how many illegal screens are set in the WNBA.
To make matters worse, the Liberty players are sent to the line for even the slightest contact. The Fever lost the game as a result of intentional carelessness, not just poor officiating.
A player will have 4 steps in advance, like the screen is legally set, but this player, and we saw it with Sony Citron, will slam into somebody setting the screen because their teammate is not calling out the screen, calling out that the screen is coming.
Let's discuss the video that was released from the game, as if the poor calls weren't enough. It was simply astounding. When Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, and the entire bench were attempting to talk about the missed calls, 3 referees, 3 mature men who are literally hired to uphold fairness and integrity, chosen to ignore them. Isn't that unbelievable?
If this injury does anything, it should be a wake-up call to the WNBA, the Players Association, the team owners, that just like that, all this fanfare, all this interest, all this newfound attention on the league can disappear.
This was not an error. This wasn't a bad decision. This was a planned snub. It's blatantly unprofessional in addition to being disrespectful. They had the opportunity to treat professional players with some fundamental decency and respect, but but instead they pretended that the fever didn't exist.
2024 was a year of unprecedented growth in viewership in the WNBA, a substantial amount of which can be attributed to Caitlin Clark, who took the basketball world by storm after an all-time college career.
And that's a major issue for the league overall, not just for Clark. There's a serious systemic problem with the WNBA's officiating culture when referees are unable to even interact with players who are attempting to clarify a situation.
Caitlin Clark out at least 2 weeks waited, but can the WNBA maintain without her? Can the WNBA pack arenas draw ratings?
Naturally, though, this goes beyond a single game. No, there's a trend here. A pattern of damnation. Caitlin Clark appears to be being treated like an invisible person by the referees simply because she is a superstar. The bias against her has been so blatantly apparent this season that it is nearly impossible to ignore.
The referees just exposed their hand so bad, bro. I mean, they just didn't care no more. They didn't care. The world was watching how bad the calls was.
People disregard fouls. She is struck more forcefully than everybody else, but nothing occurs. The WNBA seems to have determined that Clark is not in need of protection, despite being the league's official face.
Didn't care at all. They was going to get their issue off against the Fever no matter what. And I'm here to tell you, that's exactly what went down, bro. They have an agenda against Caitlin Clark.
The most annoying thing is that Clark isn't the only one affected by this. It is undermining the league's own credibility. Players and fans alike are beginning to realize that the WNBA's officiating is corrupt at worst and unreliable at best. The game ceases to be about the players and becomes about who is treated better when officiating errors become overt biases.
The reason that people are complaining is because they haven't watched the WNBA before, and these are just new fans who don't understand. But there's clearly an issue.
Let's be honest. This season was the ideal opportunity for the WNBA to get better. They pledged to improve referee accountability and officiating. What took place, nothing we're witnessing worse officiating and more obvious bias than ever before, rather than any advancement.
She will be out for 2 weeks minimum following a quad strain.
Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham going to the officials and trying to, ask for an explanation of what had just occurred.
The WNBA as a whole is appearing to be a joke due to the league's inaction. Hey, we promise better officiating, but then just lets the same corruption go unchecked, is how the WNBA seems to put it. They also question why fans are annoyed. And let's not even discuss the consequences of Clark's injury.
This is a WNBA problem, and as more and more eyeballs are watching this league, it becomes growingly an issue. The officiating feels you never have a true grasp.
She eventually sustains a quad injury, no less, after getting beaten on the court and going without communication for at least 2 weeks. I don't think it's a coincidence. It's evident that Clark's season-long lack of protection has had a negative impact.
Not listening to them. They're not listening to the coaches. They're not listening to the players. They're not listening to the fans. They're listening to their stakeholders. That's why I keep saying nothing is going to change till the mindset and whoever's running all of this, the stakeholders, governance, whoever these people are.
The Fever are currently battling to remain competitive in the league without its leader, forcing them to relocate their games to larger venues in a last-ditch effort to keep supporters interested. However, let's face it, without Clark, the energy is gone.
Lions head coach Stephanie White, she was complaining about her team not getting a whistle, not being respected.
And it is visible to fans. Her absence is a major setback for the club and only served to emphasize how much the league depends on her for excitement and attention.
It's the Caitlin Clark disrespect. And what I mean by that is you've got somebody who is obviously the most popular player in basketball. You got somebody that I would argue maybe a top 5 most popular athlete in the United States of America. All right. You've got this athlete in a league that nobody's been watching.
Following yet another night of horrible officiating, Stephanie White, the head coach of the Indiana Fever, was not holding back. White was incensed after seeing what can only be described as complete anarchy on the court. Her frustration extended beyond a few missed calls. She was so appalled by what she witnessed that White didn't hold back in denouncing the officiating as rude and disrespectful.
And your system is broken against that team?
Additionally, she wasn't discussing a few bad calls. The game was making this trend of officiating worse. The Fever wasn't just dealing with a few personal mistakes. They were dealing with a systemic issue. White went into great detail about how Clark and her squad were singled out on the court, but the referees chose to ignore it.
Kelsey Mitchell said even if there is a injury, hopefully it's just, like a little nagging thing. And again,
take care of your body and just make sure you know. I think recovery is everything. I think if you're in tune to your body, you know what you need. This is Caitlin.
She cited some plays when the Fever was obviously tainted. The Dana Bonner play is a prime illustration. No foul was called despite Bonner being completely crushed on her way to the basket. It was the kind of hit that would have sent any other player to the line, but she did not get punished. Then there was a foul on Lexi Hall. After yet another obvious miscall, Wyatt had enough.
Hiring referees who basically didn't have any experience but high school refereeing jobs, and then they did a stint in the G League. Like, these referees actually aren't. I gained and reconfirmed with myself that not much is going to change.
She didn't mince words when she called this what it was, a broken system that required quick fix. This wasn't just a coach venting after a difficult defeat. Stephanie White was calling for reform in a manner that ought to have rocked the league to its foundation. It was now intolerable that the referees were not being held accountable.
There's a committee for stakeholders, coaches, governors, and general managers, and that is saying what style of basketball they want to allow, and the referees are following that law.
The WNBA had made bold claims that officials would be held responsible for their acts, and that they would address the issues that coaches and fans have been bringing up for years, promising much improved officiating this season. How did that turn out then? Not at all well. Instead, we experienced a worsening of the issue.
4 games for Stephanie White to say, I've had enough.
I thought she got fouled. I think it's pretty egregious what's been happening to us the last few games.
Nothing changed regarding the referee's obvious partiality against Caitlin Clark. It persisted all season long, leaving players and supporters in shock. The league's claims of better officiating seemed more like a phony publicity gimmick. Not only was Clark harmed by the refereeing system's inefficiency, but the entire league suffered as well because they were not meeting the very criteria they had established for themselves.
I thought she got fouled. I think it's pretty egregious what's been happening to us the last few games. And I might be able to understand it if we were just chucking threes. And the disrespect right now for our team has been pretty unbelievable.
And how did the league react to all of this cricket? The WNBA said nothing in response to the worries expressed by players, coaches, and fans. Rather than accepting accountability and implementing significant adjustments, they simply allowed the problems to worsen. Fans were incensed, and rightfully so. Some of them began threatening to quit attending games entirely if the WNBA didn't take action. The officials continued to ignore clear foul play, and Clark continued to be treated roughly without any protection. This issue was alienating supporters. The league was unable to continue acting as though this was not occurring, but they managed to.
The only draw in your league, the only player capable of selling tickets, is potentially out for an extended period of time. What the hell are you gonna do now?
There was a genuine cost associated with all of this nonsense, so let's now discuss its effects. One of the WNBA's best players, Caitlin Clark, had a quad injury as a result of playing rough and physical for the whole season without receiving any foul calls. That shouldn't come as a surprise. Something has to give when you're playing unprotected and getting struck repeatedly.
I understand. The frustration that I think comes the most with officiating is the inconsistencies of officiating. But listen, this is not unique.
Clark did indeed go down, and it is now anticipated that she will be gone for at least 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Let that sink in. A team that is already having trouble staying consistent must now deal with a severe blow without their best player. They are frantically trying to find out how to keep things together now that Clark is gone. But it's not simple. Without her, the team's energy simply isn't the same and the offensive collapses.
Right, when that foul took place, CBS said she's got a challenge left. Well, it didn't matter. She couldn't use it. Stephanie White could not challenge that foul call on Lexi Hall, the one that led to the game-winning free throws from Sabrina Ionescu, because she didn't have a timeout.
This is the jerk. Fans are incensed. They are not just outraged that Clark is not playing. They are incensed because they think that if the referees had done their duties, they might have prevented this injury and Clark wouldn't be out of commission at this time. However, we are witnessing Clark battle through uncalled fouls instead, and and now she is bearing the consequences of the referee's ineptitude.